It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. Episode 4 of the D-Pad Wrestling YouTube channel is here. Welcome everyone back to another episode. I am Matt Fish Viscioni, and here with me is a very special guest, a very long-time friend of mine, really hardcore wrestling fan, much more of a better wrestling fan than I am for sure. So would you please introduce yourself to the D-Pad Nation and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been a wrestling fan for?
Oh man, D-Pad Nation, my name is Gabriel Ventura. People call me Gabraham. Fish right here actually stole my nickname because originally I'm the Fish.
You're right.
We might have to do a hardcore match to get that nickname back, but at the moment, I'll let you keep it. Long time wrestling fan, man. I know I don't look it. Pretty old, in my 30s.
You're definitely rocking the John Moxley vibe for sure. I could definitely see the beer scrum going. There you go.
Paradigm shift shirt and everything, man. Moxie's my boy, man. But I'm more like ECW, hardcore, old WWF, but I love AEW right now, what they've been doing.
That's awesome, and I'd have to say this is kind of like the most important question of them all. Who would have to be your favorite wrestler of all time, whether it's from WWE or even AEW right now? Like, who has to be your favorite wrestler right now?
That's hard, man. Me, I'm a list guy. I love making lists. You know, I can't really do a top number one guy, but current AEW star, John Moxley, of course, is my dude right now. But all-time favorite wrestler, that's got to be Rob Van Dam. The whole freaking show, that's my dude right there.
Yep, arguably the greatest. Well, between him and probably like Tommy Dreamer, probably the greatest ECW wrestler to ever, step foot in that ring. Dude was absolutely unbelievable, for sure.
Definitely Tommy Dreamer. I got to tip my hat to him. But Bubba Ray Dudley, not only was he a wrestler inside the ring, he did everything outside of the ring for ECW. He was booking matches, he was getting the arenas. Besides merchandise, which I heard was Taz, he was doing everything.
Yeah, that whole company was absolutely like off the walls. Have you ever been to a ECW show before?
ECW, no, I have not been. Honestly, I've only been to a handful of shows. But I did get to see Sabu live, and that was nuts. He actually wrestled when my buddy was on the same card. He went against Colt Cabana, and I forgot the other guy. It was a triple threat match, and then this other guy wrestled Sabu.
Wow.
And Sabu, man, he still had it. We're going back, I want to say about maybe like 6 years ago. It was at St. Pat's in Bay Ridge. And Sabu just laid into him, man. It was awesome. It was awesome.
It's so cool to hear. Speaking of Colt Cabana, that's one of the many wrestlers that we're going to be talking about today in this episode. Because as you probably guessed, the title and the thumbnail of this video, we're going to be discussing everything that happened in the media scrum following AEW All Out. But before we get to that, I just want to quickly remind D-Pad Nation, if you have missed my review for AEW All Out with my friend Mark, it is live on the channel right now. So if you go to that, we talked about our top 3 matches of the show, as well as we discussed the surprise return of MJF, and we were just so excited to see him, and thank God he's back, because I feel like ever since he has walked out of the company, it just kind of went downhill from there, personally, in my opinion. But if you want to check all of that out, it is on the YouTube channel. We are also on Instagram right now, so if you could please do us a favor, super kick party that follow button for all your news and rumors that we will be covering. So please go to the description box down below to the link for our Instagram account. And with that being said, Gabe, let's get started here with the media scrum. And right now, it's been, I'd say, 2 to 3 weeks following All Out, and people are still talking about the media scrum. And for those out there who have no idea what we're talking about, basically, CM Punk won the AEW World title at All Out in his hometown in Chicago, making him a 2-time champion. And following that, there was a press conference, or as they like to, or as they called it, the media scrum. And instead of answering questions from the press, CM Punk just kind of went on a rant from there of how, talking about his old friend Colt Cabana, who he has been friends, throughout his entire career, and the falling out that they've had following their lawsuit. And then on top of that, it led to him calling out Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the Elite, and also for some odd reason calling out Hangman Adam Page. And it just kind of led to a whole a bunch of different questions that were asked. I was personally confused as to why what happened, but it then led to what alleged to be happened. A huge fight broke out between Punk and the Elite, and there were a lot of other wrestlers that were involved, that were either involved in the match or also broke up the fight. Some of the names that were involved in the fight, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, Brandon Cutler, Ace Steel. Gabe, I want to turn over to you because, you and I have been talking about wrestling for so long, and, we both have our mixed opinions about CM Punk. When he came to the company, he quickly became a very, beloved guy, thinking that he was going to save the company, going to bring the company to new heights. But then ultimately, a year later, he's in this position where he's not only suspended, he's also injured, but he could potentially get fired. So I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on this whole CM Punk situation?
Oh man, I have many thoughts about this whole situation. Punk has become everything that he does not like. He was always that jobber. He was having to lay down for guys that were part-timers. I'm sorry, but Punk is now a part-timer. Punk is not anywhere near the shape or form that he was 7-8 years ago when he left WWE. He was always pissed about Brock Lesnar being a part-timer, but I'm sorry, Brock Lesnar went to the UFC and put in the beats on people. He won the heavyweight championship at UFC. I don't see him being a part-timer. I see him being an olive branch and expanding WWE at that time and having all these other fighters come and show up at WWE events. I mean, look, King Velasquez came at one point just so that Brock Lesnar and him can get into it. To me, Punk doesn't really have a leg to stand on. He's trying to be this saving grace for AEW. I'm sorry, but AEW doesn't yet need anybody to save them right now. They're always doing well in ratings, people coming back, old stars coming back. I don't see where they needed Punk, to be honest. And for Punk to go on this rant after winning the championship in his hometown, it was not the time, nor was it the place to bring this up. The lack of unprofessionalism from Punk is absurd. Not only was he talking about stuff that happened in 2014, which was legal issues with his best friend, he just sounded like he was crying. And not only that, he was eating the whole time. That stuff pissed me off. I'm sorry. I cannot stand it when people have a mouthful of food and they're talking to me.
I feel like he definitely hasn't been the same ever since he left. And I feel like it was around that time where AEW needed someone like Punk, because they were just getting started, and to compete with a juggernaut like WWE, they needed someone that could easily bump up the ratings to what they were before, from average to even higher. And especially when they were trying to compete with shows like NXT or even SmackDown. Raw, very, very impossible, especially when Vince was still there. When I saw Punk returning, I honestly believed every word that he said, that he was going to elevate some of the younger talent, and that he was going to bring relevancy back to the term professional wrestling. And I saw his match with Darby Allin at last year's All Out, and I definitely felt like it was the beginning of something new. And when Punk had that feud with Hangman, he won the title, was going to lead to the Summer of Punk. We were all in for it. He got injured, and it just led to what it is right now. And he's literally just a shell of his own self. And I think one would have to question, do you think that it is the Elite's fault that he is in this position right now? Because when you really think about it, this whole stuff between Colt Cabana should have never been out there. In fact,
Not once.
they should have. In fact, honestly, they should have like handled it right away and just completely like shut it down. But I feel like, being the fact that they like to put their egos and their brand above everything else, they honestly just want everyone talking. So I just feel like if they would have just handled themselves as professionals, I feel like this whole fight that they had backstage would have never even happened.
Yeah. It definitely shouldn't happen. I mean, the 1989 Mets hated each other, but they won a World Series. You know what I mean? Because they were professionals when they needed to be professionals. I just don't understand it, because what I really don't understand, though, is why have a squash match 3 minutes, 1 second long for Punk to lose to then just get an automatic rematch in Chicago in his hometown.
Yeah.
What they should have done is they shouldn't have even had that match. They should have waited. Punk comes out what they should have done is just not have the match. Moxley should have put the contract down in the ring. Ace Steel should have came, and then all this background about who Ace Steel was and that he's Punk's trainer and all that. That should have been left. That's what should have been told. That story should have been told. And then he signed the contract for Punk, and then Punk made his return in Chicago. That squash match should have never have happened, because what was the point?
Yeah.
What was the point of it?
I think because they were trying to sell away, his injured foot, and I think going into Chicago, they were pushing the narrative of him being so over with the crowd, given the fact that these rumors with like him wanting Colt Cabana out of AEW or wanting him to wrestle in like Ring of Honor. I think Tony Khan saw him not only as a valuable asset to the company, but also in a way is like his friend or something. Which by the way, Tony Khan should just grow up and start acting like an owner, because I feel like in the wars of MJF, it's literally just all friends wrestling. Like I feel like Tony Khan is more acting like everyone's best friend rather than acting like a boss. I feel like he needs to step up and he needs to make these necessary changes and just to literally let them know, hey, I was serious since day one when I first purchased this company, and I'm just as serious as I am right now. And so I feel like Tony Khan should have done, like he should have done a much better job in handling this whole situation, especially with Punk. Like if you saw his face reactions, he felt he was going through a bunch of different emotions. He went from sad to confused to angry. It's like dude's mind was running like all over the place.
Yeah, he was definitely all over the place during that press conference or media scrum, whatever you want to call it. He was all over the place. You could see it in his face, just like you said. At one point too, he was like, why are you talking about this? And I just don't get it. I mean, it still baffles me. 2 or 3 weeks later, about why Punk brought all this nonsense up. And then I find out that it wasn't like how the media has brought it out, how Omega and the Young Bucks went into his room. People are saying that they kicked down the door. I heard that they walked in there. Mm-hmm. And that
probably threw a super kick party on that door.
When you keep hearing, you don't know really what happens. Punk knows what happens, and the guys that were all involved knows what happens. You got their side of the story, his side of the story, and then you got the truth. And unfortunately, we're not going to know what the truth is. And unfortunately, a champion was stripped, and the trio champions were stripped because of it. But I freaking love Death Triangle, so I'm pretty happy that they won the trios champion. Not to take anything away from Omega and the Young Bucks, but it should have been Death Triangle from the start.
Really? I always thought it would be like House of Black, because I feel like I kind of feel like they were, in my mind, the most established, most well put together trio in that whole roster. I feel like I would have loved to see, like, not, I would have loved to see, like I said in my All Out review, like a House of Black versus United Empire final, or House of Black versus Elite final, or even in this case House of Black versus like Death Triangle, a rematch for the trios titles. I feel like that would have been so much better. But given the outcome that we had in the finals, we all kind of saw it coming, where we had the Elite and the history that they've had with Hangman and the Dark Order. We all just knew knew that it just saw it coming. But going back to CM Punk, I really did not think he had to call out Colt Cabana in the way that he did, and just giving out, secrets about his situation between, him and Cabana, and just sharing that he shares a bank account with his own mother. I mean, like, it's like, let me ask you this. Do you think that, like, I'm sure that he already denied it, but when Punk first came to AEW, did you think initially that would be the end of Colt Cabana's run in AEW? Do you think that he was fired? Do you think he was going to be fired? Do you think he was going to work like somewhere else?
I honestly did not think that was going to have any sort of repercussions of Punk being there. I really thought that they would be professionals, and the man was there first. The man's been working there. He's done everything that AEW has asked of him, working dark matches, working with the Dark Order. No matter what, he's done it time and time again. And I'm sure he's in the back helping the younger talent. Unlike Punk, who is just saying, well, I'm here to put everyone over. I'm here to help. Colt's back there helping.
Meanwhile,
it's a little bit different.
Yeah, meanwhile, he calls everyone, they're like, he hates working with, like, children, But, like, you worked with Darby. You worked with Powerhouse Hobbs. It really doesn't show that he was a leader. I feel like he was honestly just someone who, in ways, kind of like Brock Lesnar, who honestly just wanted a paycheck. And I feel like that's what he's always wanted ever since he came to AEW.
That's what he's been hunting. I mean, look, he went to UFC, he got his ass beat. Why? Because he got a paycheck. But the Green Ranger has called out CM Punk time and time again, and he will not fight him because the Green Ranger will kick Punk's ass. Sorry. That's about to happen. It should happen at some point.
Yep.
And Punk wants to talk nonsense over and over and over again. But at the end of the day, you live long enough to be the hero to become the villain.
Yeah.
And honestly, Punk, in my eyes, is a villain. He's a villain now. He's hurting the company. Of course, it's easy to say, well, I'm here to help and all that. Actions are louder than words every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I take away from Punk.
Yeah.
You don't need to say, oh, I'm going to do this. Just do it. Just do it, man. Look, I'm an apprentice now. I work under journeymen. I'm sure as hell they don't want to work with a new guy. I'm only a year in. Punk needs to realize people have helped him in the past. Eddie Guerrero wrestled him. Do you think Eddie Guerrero wanted to wrestle Punk? Probably did. But CM Punk's had a match with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio once, a triangle match in a gym. One of the craziest matches I've seen. I'm sure that Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio both could have said, you know what? We're not putting this guy over.
Yeah.
But they did, because that's what comes down to the business. You help and you want to make this grow and become bigger than yourself and bigger than anybody else. You have to help the younger generation and the younger talent, and you do so by doing it. Not by saying that you're going to do it, you just do it. And that's that.
No, I completely agree. And especially when you're a veteran in that industry, obviously you have to think about other people rather than yourself, And speaking of putting over younger talent, I want to talk about someone who, was also in a feud with Punk earlier this year. And, and that person happens to be MJF. And we all saw that he returned to AEW, and he returned right after Punk won the championship. And I'm not sure if you noticed this or it was just me, but it seemed to me that the Chicago crowd had a drew a much louder reaction when MJF's music hit than Punk winning the title. And in my mind, I think that's also a reason why Punk was so set off, because he also mentioned something in the media scrums how he did not like working with quote unquote, like young pricks or like wrestling pricks. And he worked with MJF. Personally, for me, feud of the year for AEW, bar none. Their dog collar match, absolutely amazing. So would you have to say part of the reason why Punk was so fed up during the media scrum was the reason he didn't get the reaction he deserved, in his hometown, that Chicago gave more love to MJF?
That definitely can be a contributing factor to why Punk was being the way. Well, Punk was being a bitch. Why he was being the way he was being. I mean, not only did MJF get a huge response, but my man Mox was also getting a huge response. At first, yes, the crowd was totally on Punk's side, but through this match, I felt like it was 50% Punk, 50% Mox. Mm-hmm. I mean, we knew Punk was going to be there. We knew that this match was going to happen. What the crowd did not know was that MJF was going to come back and finally win an opportunity for the AEW Championship. That's why they had such a great ovation for him. I mean, MJF is the king of shit talking. I love MJF right now. I mean, he's the best on the mic. He's a stud. I mean, and he's from Long Island. I mean, that's a hop, skip, and a jump away from Brooklyn. He's from Create a Pro Wrestling. That's Brian Myers' school. My buddy is Brian Myers' brother. We did an art show at their wrestling school, artwork around the ring.
Oh, wow.
And they did a 6-match wrestling match there. I mean, Ryder was in the crowd too. I'm sorry, Matt Cardona was in the crowd too.
The best.
He's an awful human being right now. I heard a bunch of stories about him recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll get into that another time, man, because they're good, man.
Okay.
But I mean, MJF and Punk, I would have loved to have seen that. I mean, definitely loved to have seen it for a championship going. We did get it. We did get that dog collar match, which was amazing. But after Punk winning the championship, we knew that MJF was going to be coming for that title. Mm-hmm. We knew at some point that MJF was going to come for that title. I also had other ideas and other theories for MJF. I really, really, really thought that Hunter was going to go for MJF once Cody came back.
I could definitely see where you're coming from. Just kind of, in a way, pulling off the Shane O'Mac to like WCW, kind of way. I think that would have been, it definitely would have been something for sure.
Oh man, I have it already written out. It would have been like, I can't wrestle no more. I got a pacemaker in my heart, but I have the money, I have the means, and I have the leverage to now get anyone that I want to wrestle you. And then MJF's music would hit, they would get into the ring, and then they would just go at it. No words, nothing. Just them two fighting. And then you could build all of this up. They could talk. Cody's good on the mic. He's not as good as MJF on the mic, but they're both really, really good. Mm-hmm. And that's how I would have done it. If I had money, definitely would have went that route with it. But I see why MJF is still there. It's MJF anywhere, I feel like right now is gold. Mm-hmm. Imagine the matches that you could have had in WWE with MJF, but also imagine the matches that you can have in AEW. Even if he went to New Japan, the man would be good. He would get booed out of the building no matter what. He would
have equally been hated over in Japan as like Will Ospreay was, which I feel like for me, MJF and Ospreay are probably two of the best heels in the industry right now, alongside with like Jay White. Honestly, I feel like those guys are absolutely killing it in Japan. And I definitely, from what it looked like by the end of the show, it looked like we were going to get a match that was leading up to honestly Full Gear. I wouldn't say Grand Slam because I felt like, it would have been very, very soon. Although it would have been really cool to see MJF win the title in his home state. That would have been awesome. But I just know that given the fact that AEW is now using like long-term like storytelling, I feel like they would have slowly but surely built it up to the point where Punk would defend against MJF at Full Gear, and then Punk would lose the title to him, which then eventually would have him be ran off television to recover from injury. And speaking of that, he's out for 6 to 8 months, and obviously that's nearly like more than half a year for him to come back to AEW. So I have to ask you, what do you think Tony's move should be?
What I would do if I was Tony is I would make Punk work for it. I would make him do everything that he said that he was here for. He would work dark matches. He would work with every single talent in the back.
CM Punk's not
prove it.
CM Punk can't do dark matches. If he finds out he'll do dark matches,
he can't do dark matches, but he has to do one, at least. You're saying that you're here to build up new talent. Build up some new talent,
right?
Why not? What's so bad about doing a dark match?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything bad. If you're here to do what you said that you're going to do, and that's to help, be helpful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is what it is. You messed up. I feel like the best years of Punk were wasted. You decided to leave because you felt used. You felt like everyone else was getting over you. You had all these part-timers coming in, taking the matches that you felt like you deserved. If you feel like that here now, well, then maybe you should just leave again. But if I was Tony Khan, I would do exactly what you were saying and be a boss and tell him, hey, man, this is what you're doing. You really want to be here? You're going to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And why? Because I'm the boss and because I told you to. It's not – Punk doesn't own this company. Punk is an asset to the company, but he's not the only asset in AEW.
Yeah.
He's not the only one there. So that's what I would do. It can be a stick. It can be an angle. Oh, Punk, you lose another match, you're fired.
Yeah.
Punk, lose another match, you're out of here. Something like that, along those lines. It's kind of like how Mickie James is right now, where she did it upon herself, where she was like, you know what? The next match I lose is my last match. Yeah. You know what? It should be put on Punk. The next match that you lose, you're out. Tony Khan is the owner of the company, so he's going to do whatever he wants. Whether it's throw Punk into the championship match as soon as he comes back or makes him earn it. Would I be upset about it? Look, man, there's always something that I can find to be upset about wrestling, no matter what organization it is. I'm constantly talking shit. That's what it comes down. I'm always saying, look, man, I feel like I could call stuff. Sometimes I call it and I'm right on the money, and sometimes they do the total opposite. And that's okay. It's wrestling. You know what I mean? It's a show.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day.
I get that.
And would I be 1,000% upset about it? No, I wouldn't, because it's MJF and it would be Punk, and it was supposed to be a match that they should have done anyway.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really be too heartbroken about it, but I feel like with Punk just coming back, there are going to be people there that are going to be like, hey man, where's my title shot? Adam Page never got his rematch.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
I mean, you definitely made a good point, and I felt like a match between Punk and Hangman would be absolutely amazing. Aside from Punk, we also need to mention quickly about the Elite. Like you mentioned before, Gabe, they got stripped of their trios titles. Now, we have no idea how long they're suspended for. We have no idea what their role is going to be when they come back. But what we do know is some of the other wrestlers that were involved in the fight, their suspensions ended and they're back to work, except for Ace Steel, which, like Punk, I could see him, getting fired, because I feel like with the allegations of him biting like Omega, it was just like, why? Like, you just could not, like, you want to make a situation a lot more worse, like just do that. This was just completely uncalled for. But how do you think the Elite is going to be, treated in AEW? Like, do you think they're still going to be the EVPs, or do you think that they're going to give up their roles and just be like active members, like on the roster?
That ball is in Tony Khan's hands, and it's in those guys' hands. I mean, look, like, I could take it as a grain of salt if they're still EVPs or not. They're still active wrestlers, and that's what they want to do. They want to be wrestlers. those roles are meant for people much further down the line. I've never heard someone being a wrestler and doing so much backstage as these guys do. They're saying it time and time again. EVPs, EVPs, EVPs. No, I want wrestlers. I want wrestlers in the ring. I don't care about their politics backstage. I really don't. You want to be the trios champion? You want to be the belt collector again? You got to be a wrestler. Because it's easy for anybody to say, "Hey, well, they're throwing the belts on them because they're EVPs."
Mm-hmm.
And that's always an issue. With even when Cody was there and he was an EVP and he was crying about not being able to do the matches that he wanted to do, and then he decided to leave because he thought he was the big shot around there. It's not your company. It's Tony's company.
Yeah.
It's not your money. It's his money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, it could be. If it was me, I would take that role away from them.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. It's a little bit too much. When they first started out that first year, to get them notoriety, to get them seen and them out there and to be taken seriously, yes, they should have been
exposed,
Yeah, but now I don't think it's that important for them to be known as the EVPs or to even have that role anymore.
Right.
It sucks to say, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about you, but when I saw that they won the trios titles, I said to my friend Mark, like, they just did not, like, they didn't need it. Like, if anything, Dark Order and Hangman needed it more than them. A team like House of Black or Best Friends could have, could have better utilized those titles, or could have been much more suited trios to have those titles. So it's a really tough situation between the Elite and Punk, and I think we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. It could take weeks, might even take months, hell, even next year, really, to see if we're gonna get any updates. One more question for you, Gabe, before we end this episode, is, given the actions of both Punk, the Elite, and Tony Khan, if and when they do come back, do you think that AEW is going to be the same? Do you think that they're going to be like they were when they first started out? Or do you think that they're going to go downhill from there?
It's hard to say. I mean, the Elite, they're just so fun with stuff. They can make fun of this on being the Elite. They could turn the tables on this every different way. Could say, well, you know what? I got bit, or something. They could definitely go one route with it or the other. They could stay upset about it, or, they could put their nose to the ground, head to the ground, and just work and do everything that they said that they want to do. Tony, I mean, we're not going to have that media scrum anymore, unfortunately, at the end of matches now. Mm-hmm. We're just not. Because of this situation, we're just not going to have that. I feel like it ruffled Tony Khan's feathers now, where he's going to be like, you know what? I'm tired of being the nice guy. I'm tired of being everyone's friend. I'm going to be a boss. Mm-hmm. Backstage, yeah, you know what? I'll be your friend, but just so much, just so far. Everyone's at arm's reach. You need to be taken serious as an owner. The way to do it is he made an example. He made an example of CM Punk. He made an example of the Elite, which he had to do. He had to do that as a boss, stripping them of the titles. It is what it is, but you know what? Going forward, we're going to have a different Tony, we're going to have a different CM Punk, and we're going to have a different Elite. Yeah.
And, given the fact that we have watched all of these guys, wrestle for so long, and, they're just so beloved by, everyone. Except for Punk, because we just hate Punk now. But aside...
Yeah, not a fan.
But aside from the Elite, I really do hope that they can bounce back from this, because, I really do like the Elite. I'm really big on Kenny, and I really do like the Young Bucks. And I think... I'm hoping by the end of this is not going to be the end for AEW, but it's going to be a new beginning, really. And I feel like for that new beginning, it's going to start off at Grand Slam, where we are going to crown a new AEW champion between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson. Real quickly, who do you think is going to be our new champion?
I love Mox, but man wanted time off. He wanted 6 weeks off after that last pay-per-view. That's why the belt got dropped to Punk, I feel like, as well as it was in his hometown. Mox is going to go out for 6 weeks because he needed a break. The man's been doing everything. He's been running himself ragged. He's my boy, but I think Danielson's going to win.
Yep.
Just on the mere fact that Punk needs a break.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like Danielson has been wanting his shot for so long, and he's just a beloved person by everyone. I can definitely see a Danielson and MJF feud in the future, heading into Full Gear, and regardless, I think the main event is going to be absolutely amazing. But D-Pad Nation, what do you think of the media scrum? What are your thoughts on the words of CM Punk? What do you think is going to happen to the Elite? And what are you looking forward to the most about Grand Slam? Please leave your comments and thoughts below. And just like that, we are all out of time. Gabe, thank you so much for joining on the show, man. I really do appreciate you coming in. We hope to see you here more in future videos.
Awesome, man. I'll forever want to be a part of this, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. He is Gabe. I'm Matt Fish Viscioni, and we will see you all next time. And that's the bottom line, because D-Pad Wrestling says so.
What?